Well, hello to all you wonderful nobodies out there. Undoubtedly just beautiful, freshly shaven, smelling fucking nice, clean, just ready for the week/weekend, whichever one it is or is approaching when you happen to listen to this. It's me, Jason. I'm the guy. I'm the guy that does the thing that your thing is playing now that you're about to listen to. That's me. I have been sick. So if I sound super extra sexy tonight, that's fucking why. You guys want to hear a cool thing? Like a cool story that happened? Yeah? That's a pretty loud yeah. I'm pretty sure I heard it. Okay. So, once upon a midnight dreary, while I pondered weak and weary over many a quaint and curious volume of forgotten lore, while I nodded, nearly napping, suddenly there came a tapping, as of someone gently rapping at my chamber door. "'Tis some visitor," I muttered, tapping at my chamber door, "only this and nothing more." Distinctly I remember it was the bleak December, and each separate dying ember wrought its ghosts upon the floor. Eagerly I wished the morrow, vainly I had tried to borrow from my books secrets of sorrow. Sorrow for the lost Lenore, for the rare and radiant maiden whom the angels name Lenore, nameless here forevermore. And the silken, sad, uncertain rustling of each purple curtain thrilled me, filled me with fantastic terrors never felt before, so that now, to still the beating of my heart, I stood repeating, "'Tis some visitor entreating entrance at my chamber door. Some late visitor entreating entrance at my chamber door. This is it, nothing more." Presently my soul grew stronger, hesitating then no longer. "Sir," said I, "or madam, truly your forgiveness I implore, but the fact is I was napping, and so gently you came rapping, and so faintly you came tapping at my chamber door, that I scarce was sure I heard you." Here I opened wide the door. Darkness there, and nothing more. Deep into that darkness peering, long I stood there wondering, fearing, doubting, dreaming dreams no mortal ever dared to dream before. But the silence was unbroken, and the darkness gave no token, and the only word there spoken was the whispered word Lenore. This I whispered, and an echo murmured back the word Lenore. Merely this, and nothing more. Then into the chamber turning, all my soul within me burning, soon I heard again a tapping somewhat louder than before. "Surely," said I, "surely that is something at my window lattice. Let me see, then, what threat is, and this mystery explore. Let my heart be still a moment, and this mystery explore. 'Tis the wind, and nothing more." Open here I flung the shutter, when, with many a flirt and flutter, in there stepped a stately raven of the saintly days of yore. Not the least obeisance made he, not an instant stopped or stayed he, but with mine of lord or lady perched above my chamber door. Perched upon a bust of Pallas just above my chamber door. Perched and sat and nothing more. Then this ebony bird beguiling my sad fancy into smiling, by the grave and stern decorum of the countenance it wore. "Though thy crest be shorn and shaven, thou," I said, "art sure no craven, ghastly, grim, and ancient raven wandering from the nightly shore. Tell me what thy lordly name is on the night's Plutonian shore." Quoth the raven, "Nevermore." Much I marveled at this ungainly fowl to hear discourse so plainly, though its answer little meaning, little relevancy bore. For we cannot help agreeing that no sublunary being ever yet was blessed with seeing bird above his chamber door, bird or beast upon the sculpted bust above his chamber door, with such a name as Nevermore. But the raven, sitting lonely on the placid bust, spoke only that one word, as if his soul in that one word he did outpour. Nothing farther than he uttered, not a feather than he fluttered, till I scarcely more than muttered. Other friends have flown before. On the morrow he will leave me, as my hopes have flown before. Quoth the raven, "Nevermore." Wondering at the stillness broken by replies so aptly spoken. "Doubtless," said I, "what it utters is its only stock and store, caught from some unhappy master whom unmerciful disaster followed fast and followed faster. So, when hope he would adjure, stern despair returned instead of the sweet hope he dared adjure." That sad answer. "Nevermore." But the raven, still beguiling all my sad soul into smiling. Straight I wheeled a cushioned seat in front of bird and bust and door. Then upon the velvet sinking I betook myself to linking fancy unto fancy, thinking what this ominous bird of yore, what this grim, ungangly, ghastly, gaunt, and ominous bird of yore meant in croaking nevermore. This I sat engaged in guessing, but no syllable expressing to the fowl whose fiery eyes now burned into my bosom's core. This and more I sat divining, with my head at ease reclining, on the cushion's velvet lining that the lamplight gloated o'er, but whose velvet violet lining with the lamplight gloated o'er, she shall press nevermore. Then methought the air grew denser, perfumed from an unseen censer, swung by angels whose faint footfalls tinkled on the tufted floor. "Wretch!" I cried, "thy God hath lent thee, by these angels he hath sent thee respite and nepenthe from thy memories of Lenore. Let me quaff this kind nepenthe and forget this lost Lenore." Quoth the raven, "Nevermore." "Prophet," said I, "thing of evil, prophet still, if bird or devil, whether tempter sent or whether tempest tossed thee here ashore, desolate, yet all undaunted, on this desert land enchanted, on this home by horror haunted, tell me truly, I implore, is there balm in Gilead? Tell me, I implore." Quoth the raven, "Nevermore." "Prophet," said I, "thing of evil, prophet still, if bird or devil, by that heaven that bends above us, by that God we both adore, tell this soul with sorrow laden, if within the distant Aidenn it shall clasp a sainted maiden, whom the angels name Lenore, clasp a rare and radiant maiden, whom the angels name Lenore." Quoth the raven, "Nevermore." "Be that word our sign of parting, bird or fiend," I shrieked, upstarting. "Get thee back into the tempest and the night's Plutonian shore. Leave no black plume as a token of that lie thy soul hath spoken. Leave my loneliness unbroken. Quit the bust above my door. Take thy beak from out my heart, and take thy form from off my door." Quoth the raven, Nope, nevermore, nope, nevermore." And the raven, never flitting, still is sitting on the pallid bust of Pallas just above my chamber door. And his eyes have all the seeming of a demon that is dreaming, and the lamplight o'er him streaming throws his shadow on the floor, and my soul, from out that shadow that lies floating on the floor, shall be lifted nevermore. It's called making literature fun, people. Fucking let's do this.
Oh, all I want to know, all I want, just a touch of my burning hand. I send my astro zombies to rape the land. Prime directive, exterminate the whole human race, and your face drops into a pile of flesh. Then your heart pounds till it pumps to death. Prime directive, exterminate whatever ever stands left. And all I wanna say, and all I gotta do.
Yo, people out there.
Hello.
That's right. Rex in effects, in full effect. Rump shaker. Let's do this. Check, baby. 1, 2, 3.
I'm pretty sure
All right,
I said
ladies and gentlemen, are we ready?
Oh, wow. Rob kept going with it.
Oh, man.
Well,
Sometimes.
This is going to be more of a... This isn't a true murder, or it's not a conspiracy per se, and it's not about aliens at all. This is going to be one of our highfalutin episodes where people are like, oh, they think they're so fucking hot shit because they fucking can read and
Put
shit.
your pinkies out now.
I got all 4 of my pinkies out, ready to go, man. Ready to go.
Digging it.
Let's just start out by saying, welcome, all and one, to another wonderful, riveting episode of See No, Hear No, Speak No.
The UFOs, conspiracies, and tasty Midas.
And me.
Yeah.
All right, so we ready for this sausage fest to begin?
Let's do it. It's sausage fest time. Everybody's got their little cups of maple syrup ready, just in case you're one of those people. I am. I like to dip my little sausage link right into the maple syrup, and then I like to eat it that way.
Oh, yeah.
Usually just breakfast
so
sausage.
Nasty.
Like, don't give me like a weird dinner sausage. I'm not gonna dip that in. Well, you know what? That's a lie. I would dip that in syrup too. But that's why I'm a big fan.
So nasty.
Your bratwurst, you're gonna fucking honey on your chorizo.
No way, man.
So
I only
nasty.
eat brat better. So, we tonight are going to be talking about mostly the works, the more, what would you say, the more popular, the more well-known works of Edgar Allan Poe. Because in doing research for a now lost episode, and maybe we'll tell you guys why one day, but I don't feel like going into it tonight.
It was all Jason's fault.
It was all Jason's fault. It is always all Jason's fault, and I will take that fault and I will fucking run it into the goddamn ground. Just like I'm about to run my wonderful tiny little female dog, Darcy, out of town because she is being inconsiderate. She sees that I'm recording.
Are you saying you run, bitches?
I mean, usually it's bitches and hoes, but all my gardening implements are locked away now, and so tonight we are not going to go into super depth of Edgar Allan Poe and his life. We are, however, going to talk about how many did I say it was? Was it 5, 6? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're gonna go into a good bit of detail of 5 of what I think are his most famous short stories. Because even some of these, I'm a fan. I mean, do you guys? Are you
for sure
fans of Poe? Are you? I mean, I know you. Everyone's familiar with him, but like, are you fans?
Yes.
Yeah, I would say so.
Okay, like I'm not saying like
poetry has always been difficult for me. Like I generally like if it's the weird symbolic poetry and shit like that. Like I don't fucking get it. I need somebody to read it to me, and then maybe I'll get it.
Right.
But no, Poe's pretty direct a lot of times with what he's saying, and even when he does use some kind of that that esoteric symbolism, it's pretty easy to get. I get it.
Yeah, and the
cool.
thing about Poe that was so really cool is that he didn't just do poetry. I mean, like I said, tonight we're going to be touching on his short stories, but I'm going to be segmenting these and bookending them in some of my favorite poetry of his, to where it's not they're not super long, they're moving, they're frightening, some of them are beautiful. He was such a diverse intellect. He knew for his schooling, which, I mean, we're only barely even going to look at here. He went all over the place in his formative years in, Scotland and England and Ireland and back in America, where he had to have either been learning a whole lot or nothing at all. And if the answer to that was nothing at all, then he would have had to had these ideas all onto his own, and would have somehow had to cultivate the mind of his mind that's just fucking crazy.
Well, you're also looking at school nowadays where 50, 60, 70% of it is taught, or people just teaching tests. So he probably actually got taught reading, writing, not, hey, this is answer C on question 3, so make sure you know this because my bonus is tied to this.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Hey guys, hold on for 1 second. My wonderful son of a bitch Sabbath just unplugged something on my computer, and I'm trying to make sure that it wasn't my microphone.
Goofy dogs.
Okay. All right, I'm back.
Being buttheads.
And it was my mouse, not my microphone, but son of a gun, they are being difficult this evening. So I will now start out with just some quick info on Poe, just so people know a little bit more about the man himself. He was an American writer, of course. He was born on January 19th, 1809. He died October 7th, 1849. So he was 40 years old when he died. He was a writer, editor, literary critic, but he's best known for his poetry and his short stories, particularly his tales of mystery and the macabre. He was widely regarded as a central figure of Romanticism in the United States and American literature as a whole, and he was one of the country's earliest practitioners of the short story in general. He is generally considered the...
I swore I thought you were going to say voodoo.
That'd be fucking cool as shit. But no. I mean, no. I was trying to think of a way that could be true. I don't.
It just pops in my head every time I hear practitioner. I think voodoo.
I think
that
nurse
makes sense.
practitioner. That's.
Well, you're lame.
Well, yeah, but I mean, it's a nurse practitioner of voodoo, so.
Yeah, I suppose that
They get
could
you
be.
the ganja man and the drugs.
Oh man, it works.
And a voodoo doll.
The ganja and the drugs, huh?
Yeah,
You know, the prescription drugs are the good shit nowadays.
Indeed.
yeah, those are two different things. The ganja cannot be considered the same as a drug anymore. It totally is, but
Who has a dog being a dick now? That's not me.
That would be
holy
my
goodness.
little buttheads.
Yeah, your dogs are way loud.
Yeah, they're
Yeah,
in the backyard. Little.
All right.
Oh, God, they drive me nuts.
Well, so
He's pretty shrill.
he is generally considered the inventor of detective fiction, and is further credited with contributing to the emergency genre of science fiction. He was the first well-known American writer to try to earn a living through writing alone, resulting in a financially difficult life and career. So he, that's kind of it. for him. He was born in 1809 from two actor parents. His mother died. His father left a year after he was born, and his mother died the year following that. So he was then an orphan, of course, in 1811. He was taken in by the Allens of Richmond, Virginia, John and Francis, but they never adopted him because he was a big water-headed baby fool.
And they were douchebags.
They were kind of douchebags. Well, I think Francis was okay. I think John was the dickhead of the family there. But, Edgar, he just kept taking money from Daddy John, and then gambling it all away. So,
and don't forget the booze and the loose women.
And the booze and there wasn't a whole lot of loose women. One probably really tight one. Oh my god, I can't believe I just said that. So,
like, hey, baby, let me read you some poetry. Come on back to my place.
So he had fights with John Allen all the time over funds for his education. So he while he was at the University of Virginia, and he left after about a year, and he joined the army under an assumed name. This was in 1827. He did the assumed name thing because he was only 18, and he said that he was 22, so he could join the army. It was in the army that
I always thought. No, sorry. I was gonna say I always thought that assumed name thing was weird. It's just a weird way to say a false name, or
it kind of is.
Because
it was assumed.
People just assume that this is what you're called.
Yeah, you know what? I don't like it. I don't like assumed names anymore.
It's not like they had IDs back in the day either.
I mean,
birth certificates or social security cards.
Yeah, true. They did, but I don't know about the whole social security card thing. I don't. That probably came out, much later. But yeah, they had birth certificates for sure. They at least had death certificates.
It still all came down to a damn good filing secretary.
Indeed, which Poe was not. He was everything else, but he was not that. While he was in the army, he came out with his first collection of poems, it was published. He published his first collection of poems, titled Tamerlane and the Other Poems. This was in 1827, and it was credited only to a Bostonian. So it wasn't very good. We're not going to really talk about it at all. He basically just stole the writing style of Frost, I believe, and just basically followed a formula to have a poem. Nobody liked it at all.
That sounds like a lot of musical artists nowadays.
Yeah, forever, really. Where is their originality?
Yeah, you're right.
Anymore. Maybe every fuck, dude. Once in a blue moon, you will find an original idea in a movie, or maybe in a television show. But the second that original idea hits the cultural lexicon, it immediately becomes copy and pasted to fucking death.
Yeah.
Just like all the good artists died too.
Yeah.
And
oh, sorry, Chris. Go ahead.
Well, that's what America does. That's America's. It's like our catchphrase. It's like, oh, hey, you made something cool, and now it's ours, and we make 10,000 versions of it. We don't make shit.
It's called oversaturating the market, which really kills any chance of the original of these to be truly beloved and to have staying power. Because even in Poe's time, they had the same problem. He had a problem getting his whole writing life, living off just my money from writing, off the ground, because back then, publishers, there were no international copyright laws, so publishers would rather just, republish British books of poems than pay some American author, So,
Them damn British people taking our jobs.
oh, they took our jobs.
Don't make me do it. I'll do it.
Do it.
They took our job.
All right, thank you, man.
Do it, Chris.
So, he, his mama, his Frances Allen, his mama Allen, died in 1829, and John and Poe kind of came to a temporary, hey, we're gonna be okay for a little while with each other, and then Poe went in to be an officer cadet at West Point, which he intentionally failed out of and left. He just didn't do anything he was supposed to do. They brought him up on charges of this. He pled not guilty, knowing full well that when he was found guilty, which he was, that he would be completely kicked out instead of just whatever court-martialed or whatever. Because he...
I got that. I'm getting that bad picture in my head of the Pauly Shore in the Army Now movie.
Yes. and that is a good movie. That is a pinnacle movie in humanity's love letter to war and the corruption therein.
Wow. You just...
Well, to go back
said
to your
all
original
that.
point, it was a ripoff of Private Benjamin from the 80s, so...
Which was a ripoff of something else from the 70s, which was a ripoff of something else from the 60s, which...
I'm just going to marvel for a moment at the fact that Jason just called that movie pinnacle
I mean...
for anything other than retardation.
I mean, we do all know that I was being sarcastic, right? I mean, it's...
Well done, indeed. Well
God,
done.
I would hope so.
So he left West Point because he wanted to write, purely be a writer, and he switched his focus to prose and spent the next several years working for different literary journals and periodicals, very much mostly becoming known for his criticism. He was a critic of poems and the such. He was a literary critic, and he was a vicious critic, but that's why people liked him so much. He moved all around Baltimore, Philadelphia, New York, Richmond, and in Richmond in 1836 he married his 13-year-old first cousin named Virginia Clem, which
Go on, dive on into that one, Chris.
gross, man. Don't be telling Chris to dive into 13-year-old girls.
I think
First
I'm
cousins.
going to leave it alone,
Yeah, it's probably a good idea.
As the law dictates.
As the law dictates.
That's a
in
Bible
this
fact.
country.
So, in January of 45, he published The Raven to instant success. Like, he overnight became well known in certain circles to being a fucking superstar. I mean, when it came out, The Raven was instantly published under a different name in a different publication, just because it was so great that people were like, we need to have it no matter what. And he was only paid $9 total, $9 for The Raven when it came out, which it sounds like a ton of money, right, guys? But it was not a very significant
compared to how much it's made over the years. $9 was...
Well, it's about 2 months' salary back then.
Yeah, but
shit.
it's still The Raven, and with the amount of success that he got the second it fucking came out is crazy. So about 2 years after The Raven was published, his wife died of tuberculosis, which is also how his mother died, and it shit just kind of went downhill from there. After she died, he went a little crazier, and on October 7th, 1849, in Baltimore. At the age of 40, he was found wandering the streets in clothes that were not his own, and he was brought to a hospital and was dead the next day. The cause of his death is completely unknown to this day and has been variously attributed to alcohol, brain congestion, cholera, drug use, heart disease, rabies, guys, rabies, suicide,
Rabies will get your ass.
suicide, tuberculosis,
evidence
and
that
other
supported
shit.
that. Like,
You know,
did he just have like random dog bites on him?
it's just random dog
And
bites
in
too.
somebody
Just
else's clothes?
that's
Well, you gotta think back then, the rats and everything else.
yeah. Everything had rabies back then, man. Everything.
Yeah, but you still would have to have been bitten by said animal. I mean, are there other ways that you can get rabies?
I hear that if you rub a rat with rabies on the bottom of your feet, that you can have it's called super rabies, and it's like rabies, but it's with a cape.
Well, that.
I think it goes back to that loose women. He probably got bit one night.
Mm.
Ew.
Everything had rabies.
That's extra gross.
So one of the crazy things about, and kind of the conspiratist thing about his death is the night that he was in the hospital. It's said that he had repeatedly been calling out the name Reynolds, though no one knew who the fuck he was referring to whatsoever. And
Probably the dude that took his fucking clothes.
yeah. He's probably like,
You
Reynolds,
bastard.
where are my skinny jeans?
That was my favorite handkerchief.
Some sources say that Poe's final words were, "Lord, help my poor soul." All medical records have been lost, including his death certificate, which I believe by law means he's still alive.
That's a touchy one.
So, for a little bit more into maybe what has killed him or whatever, newspapers at the time reported his death as congestion of the brain or cerebral inflammation, which were at the time anyway, just common euphemisms for death from disreputable causes such as alcoholism.
Disreputable.
So a bit more
I like that.
here on speculation on what could have actually killed him: delirium tremendous, heart disease, epilepsy, syphilis, meningeal inflammation, rabies, and then one theory dating from 1872 suggests that co-oping was the cause of his death, which was a form of electoral fraud in which citizens were forced to vote for a particular candidate, sometimes leading to violence and even murder. Which means some big brutes, some beat 'em bust 'em ups came up and said, "Hey, we're gonna beat you up if you don't vote for him for mayor or whatever the fuck." And Poe was like, "I'll vote for whoever the fuck I want, motherfucking Edgar Allan Poe, motherfucker." And then they killed him. Yep. Yep. Or
Well, I know what I learned from this episode already.
what's that?
Doctors didn't know shit.
Mm-mm.
How could it be?
Or when two big ass dudes come up and say, "Vote for him," you better vote for him.
Yeah, but how could there possibly be half that many possibilities of something that, like, what? Was there no examination whatsoever? Was there no, like, who did you get?
Dude, I don't know. Like, I really...
No, there was no anesthesia. There was no anesthesia back then. This is back when, oh, you got an infection in your leg? We're gonna cut that fucker off.
Very true. Oh, you have something in your eye? Well, guess what, buddy? We're gonna cut that fucking leg off.
Oh, you got a headache? Let's drill a hole in your head to let the evil spirits out.
Ooh,
Hey, that actually works, though.
well, not for evil spirits. It doesn't.
Why not?
Well, because all...
Are you speaking from experience, Chris?
I mean, I have several holes in my head.
I was just about to say, Chris has enough fucking holes in his head. Okay, so let's get into his actual writing now, which, as strange as it may sound, hearing what you people just heard, really is the more interesting.
You fucking people.
You fucking people. You know what I meant, you son of a
Racist.
bitch.
What are you talking about, you people?
That's right. We're talking about you, rabies.
Don't make me come after you.
So, I didn't know this. Did you guys know that Edgar Allan Poe wrote science fiction?
Nay, I say.
Nay,
What?
you say. Okay. Rob, do you know? Did you know
Yes.
that Poe had been a science fiction writer of sorts as well?
I believe he wrote a poem called Eureka, where he actually theorized that the universe started with one little particle and it exploded and expanding, basically coming up with the Big Bang Theory in 1847, the year he died.
Holy shit.
And that was not confirmed until the mid 1940s when Einstein came around.
I did read that as well, and that is fucking crazy that he came up with and in a poem nonetheless. Like it wasn't a scientific paper or anything like that. It was a poem that he came up with. He came up with the Big Bang Theory. That shit is nutso.
Do we know if he was a fan of Indian or Vedic literature?
Of what literature?
Indian, Vedic literature.
Not that I saw in particular.
Because technically,
Mm-hmm.
they came up with the Big Bang Theory about 10,000 years ago.
Okay. You know what? I have no way to disprove that, so I'm gonna say nuh-uh.
No.
Aliens, man. Aliens.
That's right. Just fucking aliens.
I tried to
man.
tell y'all, but y'all didn't want to hear me.
I heard you, bruh. So
Recognize.
I just wanted to read this quick little part of about him and his science fiction, and I'm taking almost all of my information tonight from a website called EAPOE, which is Edgar Allan and then Poe.org, which is the it's the Edgar Allan Poe fucking organization, whatever, that they run his shit. They run his memory and shit. So this is just a little part here about him in science fiction. His dabblings in the realm of science fiction are hardly recognizable as such today. There aren't any flying saucers, laser guns, or time machines. His works were more limited to the scientific understandings of his own day. The closest Poe's tales got to modern science fiction is perhaps the unparalleled adventure of one Hans Pfaall. That is Fall spelled Pfall. At the end of which
Is that the cousin to Wong Hong Lo?
yeah, yes, and it is a far off, distant half brother of Hans Gruber. At the end of which the hero
He makes
claims
an amazing cream of some young guy, I heard.
Oof. It is the best. The end of which the hero claims to have taken a balloon to the moon. There he describes a fantastical-looking city occupied by a vast crowd of ugly little people who have no ears and use a singular method of intercommunication, which, in parentheses, telepathy. The tone of the piece is somewhat humorous in the vein of Gulliver's Travels, although Poe is less obviously indulging in satire. Now, there is one here that I'm not going to read because it's a bit of a short story, but he dabbled not only in science fiction but also in comedy.
Comedy?
Yes,
What?
he was the proprietor No, he was the propagator, right? He was the propagator of a few hoaxes. One being the balloon hoax, which in 1844, a story known as the balloon hoax was printed in the Sun newspaper in New York. The article provided a detailed and highly plausible account of a lighter-than-air balloon trip by famous European balloonist Monk Mason, which is spelled M-O-N-C-K, Monk, across the Atlantic Ocean, taking 75 hours, along with a diagram and specifications of the craft. Now, just because Poe did do this for sure, he also at the same time kind of borrowed ideas all the fucking time. Like, the paper that he worked at, one of his editors was one of the suspected writers of a hoax that came out a few years prior called the Great Moon Hoax, which in itself plagiarized the basic idea from The Unparalleled Adventure of One Hans Pfaall, which was one of Poe's less successful stories, and then so on and so forth. So let me, under the publication history of the balloon hoax, it has the headline of the paper that it ran in that day, and I would like to read this to you now if I can.
Can you?
Astounding news by express via Norfolk. The Atlantic crossed in 3 days. Signal triumph of Mr. Monk Mason's flying machine. Arrival at Sullivan's Island near Charlestown, South Carolina of Mr. Mason, Mr. Robert Holland, Mr. Henson, Mr. Harrings Answorth, and 4 others in steering balloon Victoria, after a passage of 75 hours from land to land. Full particulars of the voyage. So, this was all just completely made up by Poe, and I think that's fucking hilarious. I think that is the goddamn best.
I wonder how many people believed it, even though it was disproved.
Well, I mean,
Probably several.
I was about to say probably like more than a ton, like way more than a ton, because it's not specifically that people were just stupid back then. It's that people were stupid and gullible back then. You know?
Indeed.
They still are today.
Well, and will be till the end of
No doubt
time.
about that.
So, yeah. So, there's one more thing before we get to the short stories proper that I want to, as Chris says, touch on real quick. There's a trio of writings that Poe called. Let me see. Let me pull up the exact word here for it. Okay, he called the Ratiocination trilogy, which includes anyway the Murders in the Rue Morgue, the Mystery of Marie Roget, and last but not least, the Purloined Letter. So, what rationalization is a it's solving something using rationale, of course, instead of whatever the fuck else you would use to whatever, I suppose. You know, buddy?
Mayo. I use mayo.
I mean,
I don't care what anybody thinks.
and see, I do too. And then, but my lady love, Melissa, she's like, no mayo for nothing, ever. You know? And I'm like,
I listened to my gallbladder, who is actually haunted by the spirit of an 18th century Buddhist monk. His name is Frank.
his
Interesting.
name better fucking be Frank. He knows what's good for him.
Is a special story. I need to know more. I need to know more.
You know what? Maybe.
That's all you get for now.
Yeah, I was about to say maybe we'll do like a some kind of special on it. We'll see.
Cool.
So, ratiocination, though,
Gallbladder ghosts.
means reasoning, conscious, deliberate inference, the activity or process of reasoning. Thought or reasoning that is exact, valid, and rational, and a proposition arrived at by such thought. So this is just scientific rationale used to solve something, basically. So there's something else that's really neat about the murders in the Rue Morgue. It's a short story by Poe that was published in Graham's Magazine in 1841. It's been recognized as the first modern detective story, for one. But for two...
The first?
The first modern
Wow.
detective story. That is not it, though. It's not only the first modern detective story, but it is the first detective story that is based on true crime. This story, there was something that happened in, where is it? Let's see. I think it was Virginia, I believe. Seriously? Where the fuck is it?
It happened in his first wife. What?
No. Oh, dude, come on now. She was 13. Oh, man. Come on, Robert. Have some tact, man.
You're the one who said it happened in her.
Oh, man. See, now
All up in it.
I'm all grossed out now. Gross and ugh.
Well,
You know? This,
Allow me to rub it in.
not the 13-year-old, no. So, there's a biographer, Jeffrey Myers, that sums up the significance of the murders in the Rue Morgue. It changed the history of world literature. Often cited as the first detective fiction story, the character of Dauphin became the prototype for many future fictional detectives, including Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's Sherlock Holmes and Agatha Christie's Hercule Poirot. The genre is distinctive from a general mystery story that the focus is on analysis. So this, like I said, it's all about rational thinking, saving the day, basically. It established...
Sounds to me like he might have actually changed how police actually do their fucking jobs.
I was
well, 'cause-
seriously thinking the exact same fucking thing. Because it also...
because how could that be new? Like, that just sounds like what you would naturally do.
Yeah, I was about to say, like, how is that not something that just always happened forever? But, you
Exactly.
know, this isn't the hunch doing shit. This is I have a hunch, now I'm going to sit down and do a bunch of fucking math before I take another step, you know?
Yeah.
So,
That's how.
Well, this was the early 1800s too.
well, mid, but yeah. It also established a ton of tropes that would be used to death, you know, till the end of time, which is the eccentric but brilliant detective, the bumbling constabulary, the first-person narration by a close personal friend, and he also is one of the first to portray the police in an unsympathetic manner, and using them to be somewhat of a foil,
fuck the police.
as a foil to the detective. So just think, and very much so, Sherlock Holmes. Just, you know, the police are bumbling morons, and Sherlock is there to figure it out and save the day, no matter what. He also.
Oh, I'm sure that made him so popular with the local police.
Oh, fuck! I mean, seriously, dude. Like, I mean, how
You
were
sure
they
it
not?
was rabies and not a billy club?
They were all just like, "I'm gonna suck your dick, Poe." Just wherever he went, just bobbies just all over him, and it hurt. It hurt his heart because he was like, "But none of you are my 13-year-old cousin."
I think you need to work on your Barry White voice a little bit, and maybe.
I don't
she
think Barry
will be
White
into you.
should be saying, "I want to suck your dick."
Well,
But who am I to
just
say?
saying.
This is also
Bitches
very
love
cool.
Barry.
You're both aware of what a locked room mystery is, correct?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay,
I
well,
mean, like the things that they actually allow you to do now.
no. That's
People-
that's an escape room. What a locked room mystery is, just super quick, is a subgenre of detective fiction in which a crime, almost always murder, is committed under the circumstance which it was seemingly impossible for the perpetrator to commit the crime and or evade detection in the course of getting in and out of the crime scene. The crime scene in question typically involves a crime scene with no indication as to how the intruder could have entered or left, i.e., a locked room. Following other conventions of classic detective fiction, the reader is normally presented with the puzzle and all of the clues and is encouraged to solve the mystery before the solution is actually revealed in the dramatic climax. So basically, and there,
So like any Monk episode ever.
right, and you know they do have
Man.
a few really famous real world locked room mysteries where they found dead bodies in a bathroom that was locked from the inside with nobody else in there. That you couldn't.
The first Superman.
Like you could,
Reeves,
yeah,
not Reeves.
yes.
What the hell is his name?
Fuck, what is the first Superman's name? Chris.
Christopher Reed.
No,
Christopher
damn it.
Reeves?
No, not Christopher Reeves. The original TV actor.
Oh shit, I don't know.
Yeah,
He supposedly commit suicide or was murdered, but everything
Didn't
was
he have
locked
shit
up,
like,
and there was no way he could actually
like
shot
carved
himself.
into his body and stuff too, though, or written on his
What?
body
No.
in lipstick or something like that.
No, that was a different one.
Okay.
That was the guy from Hogan's Heroes.
Ah.
How did I never hear about any of this shit?
I see nothing.
Yeah, this is kind of crazy. I didn't know about any of this.
Yeah.
That's
yeah,
cool.
Dude. But anyway,
Fuck, I can't think of a name.
neither can I. It doesn't fucking matter, man. But
If only I had a Google right in front of me.
Poe, this story is the first locked room mystery in all of detective fiction.
Wow.
Yeah, so I mean, not I'm trying to throw out there that he was also just a super smart fucking dude, and that he wasn't just the horror writer that everyone thinks he is today. He wrote everything.
George Reeves.
George Reeves. There it is. I knew it had either had Chris in it or Reeves in it. So that's fucking perfect. That's fucking perfect. So anyway,
Sorry, kids.
And then Bob Crane was the Hogan's Heroes. He was the one found bludgeoned to death.
with all the sex
with all
stuff
the
done to him.
homemade porn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Love it.
What?
Feels good.
This is wacky.
Oh, if you don't know the story of Bob Crane, you need to look that up. That was some
Yeah, Chris.
wild ass shit.
You
right
should,
there.
because it's fucked. Okay, so I'm not going through the other two parts of the Ratchinization trilogy. Just know that they're cool, and maybe if you're into detective stories and shit, you should read them. The end with that. So now we are starting our short stories. We have 5 of them. Like I said, they will be bookended by some poetry readings by me, but that's neither here nor there. Neither there nor here right now, something like that. We are going to start out with The Mask of the Red Death. What is your familiarity level with this tale, Chris?
0. I have not read that one.
Do you know of it at all, as far as the basic plot or storyline, just from pop culture or anything like that?
Negative.
Awesome.
You will once he starts this. Once you do the story.
I probably will.
See, I think a lot of these are like that, where you think that you don't really know what's going on, but then you kind of do, and then you're like, oh, that? Yeah, I've heard that 1 trillion times. You know what I mean? So, The Mask of the Red Death.
I mean,
was originally published as The Mask of the Red Death, a fantasy. So there's this prince, right? Prince Prospero, and the story takes place at the castellated abbey of the happy and dauntless and sagacious Prince Prospero. Prospero and 1,000 other nobles have taken refuge in his walled abbey to escape the Red Death, which is a terrible plague with gruesome symptoms that has swept over the land. Victims of it are overcome by sharp pains, sudden dizziness, and profuse bleeding at the pores. And
Ew.
they die within a half hour. So Prospero and his court are indifferent to the sufferings of the population at large outside the walls. They intend to wait the end of the plague in luxury and safety behind the walls of their secure refuge, having welded the doors shut. So Prospero holds a masquerade ball one night to entertain his guests, and it's held in 7 different colored rooms of the abbey. Each of the first 6 rooms is decorated and illuminated in a specific color, the colors being blue, purple, green, orange, white, and violet. The last room is decorated in black and is illuminated by a scarlet light, which has a deep blood color cast from its stained glass windows. Because of this chilling pairing of colors, very few guests are brave enough to venture into the 7th room. A large ebony clock stands in this room and ominously chimes each hour, upon which everyone stops talking or dancing and the orchestra stops playing. Once the chime stops, everyone immediately resumes the masquerade. At the chiming of midnight, the revelers and Prospero notice a figure in a dark, blood-splattered robe resembling a funeral shroud. The figure's mask resembles the rigid face of a corpse and exhibits the traits of the Red Death. Gravely insulted, Prospero demands to know the identity of the mysterious guest so they can hang him. The guests, too afraid to approach the figure, instead let him pass through the 6 chambers. The prince pursues him with a drawn dagger and corners the guests in the 7th room. When the figure turns to face him, the prince lets out a sharp cry and falls dead. The enraged and terrified revelers surge into the black room and forcibly remove the mask and robe, only to find their horror that there's nothing there underneath. Only then do they realize that the figure is Red Death itself, and all of the guests contract and succumb to the disease. The final line of the story sums up, and darkness and decay and the Red Death held illimitable dominion over all.
Doesn't matter how big, how fancy, how much money you've got, death comes for us all.
Exactly. That. Wow.
No doubt about that.
That was a good summation there for sure. So, Chris, what do you think about that? Like, did it ring any bells while I was going through it, or is it still a brand new thing to you?
No, it's brand new. I think if anything rang any bells at all, it was the thing about the colored rooms. But I don't know if that was, if whatever I'm thinking was possibly tied to something else. I don't know. No, it was pretty new.
Awesome. Well, what did you think of it?
It was good. I mean, I like the main point, which is what Rob summed up, and yeah, that's kind of what it is.
Yeah,
makes sense to me.
And the thing about a lot of Poe's writing is that he hated allegory. He thought, like, you could use symbolism, but flat out allegory was a big no-no to him. So when he's a very straightforward writer, and I kind of dig that, especially in his day and age. So in The Mask of the Red Death, the fact that these douchebags have until midnight in their shitty people party to dance their night away and to enjoy each other and to drink I don't know, probably daiquiris because they're fey rich people. The fact that we get to sit there and watch them enjoy this time period, and usually the reader just knowing what they're reading or from whom would know that something terrible is going to happen. But if they didn't, like if it's not just a whole, ooh, I can't wait till these people die, this is going to be great, then it would have to at least have been a good chunk of time to start to hate these people, to where the Red Death comes in and is kind of the hero of the story, correct?
Yeah, I feel that.
You can almost see Poe writing it to say he would love to go back to the fancy place where he grew up and just watch all of those people die and all their opulence and all of their big things just drop one by one.
Exactly.
He would just love to walk through and watch them die.
Yeah, exactly.
It does sound like that's what he's saying.
That's like
And actually, when it. No, go ahead.
No, you please.
I was just thinking that when you said about how the figure was the Red Death itself, like it kind of made me think of the demon that was made up of all the bugs from Constantine.
Yes.
Yeah, kind of like
and the
that.
crab and shit.
Yeah.
And it's just like Oogie Boogie from Nightmare Before Christmas. He was
Okay. Yeah.
I'm the Oogie Boogie Man.
Yes, that one. He was made of bugs too, and
The very same.
and it's like you just don't know what's inside someone until you rip their skin off. I think that's what the real lesson here is,
Makes sense to me. I'm right there with you.
So I mean, there's expert analysis of these stories, and I'll touch real quickly because we don't have a whole bunch of them to do. But in this, it said that he was directly influenced by the first Gothic novel, and it was Horace Walpole's The Castle of Otranto. The question mark was my own, not in the title. I don't know if I've said that right. So in The Mask of the Red Death, he adopts a lot of traditional Gothic fiction, including, of course, the castle setting. The multiple single-toned rooms could be representative of the human mind, showing different personality types. The imagery of the blood and time throughout also indicates corporeality. The plague, in fact, may represent typical attributes of the human life and mortality, which would imply the entire story is an allegory about a man's futile attempts to stave off death, period. Which I think is what Rob said so aptly there, is that it doesn't matter who you are, how much money you have, your station in life, what you've done with it. If you were a good person or a bad person, you're going to die. We're all going to die. And I think that is a really good, I think that's pretty awesome.
Especially with him incorporating the clock into it, where it tones every hour and everybody stops.
Mm-hmm.
And then as soon as the clock stops, they keep going right along with the party. Like, it's like one of them little wake-up calls you get every once in a while. Like, oh shit, what is that? I almost died.
Indeed, yes, yeah. Yeah, wow, yeah, indeed. Like many of his short stories in particular, it's been interpreted autobiographically by some. In this view, Prince Prospero is Poe, as a wealthy young man, part of a distinguished family, just like his foster parents. But under this interpretation, Poe is seeking refuge from the dangers of the outside world, and his portrayal of himself as the only person willing to confront the stranger is kind of emblematic of Poe's rush towards inescapable dangers in his own life. Prospero's also.
Well, I could see that too with everybody around him dying of consumption.
Uh-huh.
That he'd want to lock himself away from all the disease.
Exactly, and what's crazy is the two most important women in his life, in any way, died of consumption of this terrible death, And the Red Death at that, coughing up blood and shit. So it's kind of crazy. So yeah, that is Mask of the Red Death. And without further ado, we shall, sir, be now heading to the Pit and the Pendulum. Why don't you?
How lovely.
You know what that's.
This one I do know.
Okay, yeah. And
yes.
Rob, so you don't know this one then, right?
I can't place it in my brain, but once you start talking about it, I keep thinking of that.
Wait, I was joking. Are you
where
serious?
You're strapped to a table, where you're like strapped to a table, and they have that big like saw type blade slowly inching towards you as it swings down.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean that's it.
That's a pendulum.
Done. No. Okay. So the plot summary of this one is there's a narrator. He doesn't have a name. That's why he's the unnamed narrator. He's brought to trial before the sinister judges of the Spanish Inquisition.
Isn't he Vincent Price?
Inquisition.
Poe.
What a show.
Poe provides no explanation of why he's there or the charges he's being tried on. Before him are 7 tall white candles on a table, and as they burn down, his hopes of survival also diminish. He's condemned to death, whereupon he faints and later awakens to find himself in a totally dark room. At first, the prisoner thinks that he's locked in a tomb, but then he discovers that he's in a cell. He decides to explore the cell by placing a scrap of his robe against the wall so that he can count the paces around the room, but he faints before he can measure the whole perimeter. When he reawakens, he discovers food and water nearby. He tries to measure the cell again and finds that the perimeter measure 100 steps. While crossing the room, he trips on the hem of his robe and falls, his chin landing at the edge of a deep pit. He realizes that had he not tripped, he would have fallen into this pit. Well, after losing consciousness again, the narrator discovers that the prison is slightly illuminated now, and that he's strapped to a wooden frame on his back facing the ceiling. Above him is a picture of Father Time with a razor-sharp pendulum measuring 1 foot from horn to horn suspended from it. The pendulum is swinging back and forth and slowly descending, designed to kill the narrator eventually. However, he's able to attract rats to him by smearing his bonds with the meat left for him to eat. The rats chew through the straps and he slips free just before the pendulum can begin to slice into his chest. The pendulum is withdrawn into the ceiling, and the walls become red hot and start to move inwards, forcing him slowly toward the center of the room and the pit. As he loses his last foothold and begins to topple in, he hears a roar of voices and trumpets. The walls retract, and an arm pulls him to safety. The French army has captured the city of Toledo, and the Inquisition has fallen into its enemies' hands. So, what I see this story as is kind of a you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. I mean, this story kind of gives me my real life chaos. It is, you could be innocent of these things that you're being accused of, yet it doesn't matter what you think or what actually happened. All that matters is that the accuser is accusing you of what they want to think you did, and there's nothing you can do about it, because there's literally, I mean, you can have proof or whatever. It's the fucking Inquisition. What are you going to do? So you're destined to die. You're destined to lose this battle no matter what. But then at the last second, even after you've tried and you've tried and you've tried to show anything that you could to show your will to live, you're still fucked. But then just because you're saved, just because maybe a change of heart or whatever, just it's so random in its, and then he was saved,
Yeah.
I think it's more of the struggle against death, more as wake up every day.
But you can't win against death like
struggle
he did.
for it.
You know what I mean?
No, but you can't give up either, because he could have just jumped in the pit. He could have just stayed there and let the knife slice him.
Absolutely, but
I mean,
knowing
he could have
he
just
couldn't-
sat there in his misery.
Knowing he couldn't even get out of that room, he smeared his bonds with meat to get the rats that had previously been gnawing on him and shit to free him. So yeah, there is that stick-to-itiveness that never give up opity. Osity. Never give up osity. Is that a good one, Chris?
That'll work.
Sure.
I prove it.
All right. It has been Chris approved. And what is it? He likes it. Mikey. Chris tested, mother
Give it to
approved.
Mikey. He'll eat anything. Yeah.
Here's some shit, Mikey.
Mothers.
Eat it, you son of a bitch.
Mothers do approve when I test it.
I don't get that. I don't get what you just said being attractive to you or anyone else.
That's okay. That's probably why I'm single.
Oh, now it's that again.
That's okay as well. Don't worry.
So, Poe somewhat wrote this. I mean, it's got the Spanish Inquisition in it and shit. Kind of on real life stuff, right? But he takes dramatic license with the real history behind it. The rescuers in the story are led by Napoleon's General LaSalle, who was not in real life in command of the French occupation of Toledo. Is it Toledo or Toledo?
He was a dick.
Never let facts get in the way of a good story.
No, never. I mean, I don't. And this place is the action during the Peninsular War, which happened in 1808 to 1814, which was centuries, that's hundreds of years after the height of the Inquisition. The ridiculously elaborate torture of this story, none of those things ever happened. I mean, there have been some fucked up shit happened, but no one built a giant torture chamber to have one guy strapped to a board and psychologically fucking scar him only to goddamn push him into a hole anyway.
Well, it could also pull the religion into it too, where he was baptized Episcopalian even though he was not. So he was forced into a religion that he wasn't really into.
But I mean,
so to
he
put it in the Inquisition,
he ended up kind of being into it. Like he got to be real, chummy with the what are they called? The God damn it, the Jesuits that were from the church down the street from his house later in life, and so on and so forth. But I mean, this is more about like him just taking crazy license with real history in general. So like I said, that like the tortures that just weren't ever anything, let alone during the 19th century. There's under Charles III and IV, only 4 people were condemned during the Inquisition at that time. So the Inquisition was, however, this is true, abolished during the period of French intervention in 1808 to 1813. So that was true, I guess. Poe.
So you would say that's the last time the French actually won a war?
I would say that's the last time the French actually won a war.
I think that's fair. That is a fair statement and also approved.
But it wasn't kid tested, so down the drain it goes. Poe places a Latin epigraph before the story, describing it as a quatrain composed for the gates of a market to be erected upon the site of the Jacobean club house at Paris. The epigraph was not Poe's invention. Such an inscription had been reported no later than 1803 as having been composed with the intention, possibly facetious, of having it placed on the site, and it had appeared without attribution as an item of trivia in the 1836 Southern Literary Messenger, a periodical to which Poe contributed. It does not appear, however, that the market was ever built as intended. Charles Baudelaire, a French poet who translated Poe's work into French and who viewed Poe as an inspiration, said that the building on the site of the old Jacobean Club had no gates, therefore no inscription. That's just the end of the lack of historical authenticity of this. Chris, what do you think?
Yes.
Analyze The Pit and the Pendulum for a second. Tell me what you think. Not what Poe was thinking about as the greater theme of this story, but what you, as a person who would have no prior knowledge whatsoever of Poe or his writing style or his intentions behind anything, you would read this and it would mean what to you, especially in the mid 1800s?
No.
Okay, thanks. That's fair.
Yeah, that's
I
what I
dig it.
got for you.
I dig it. Yeah.
Yeah, in no way can I
Can
put
you
myself
dig it?
in the mind state of someone that lived in the 1800s for the simple fact that that shit was fucked up.
Okay, well,
Right?
well
I
tell me
grew up
what.
poor and stuff, but I mean, damn.
Tell me what Chris finding it today would have said.
Oh, well, I mean, Chris today is, I would say one of those, like, it's like a love-hate thing between me and the Spanish Inquisition. I think that's, like, historically one of the most fucked up things that has ever happened, and it happened for almost 500 years.
That's what I was just about to say. A lot of people don't realize that the Inquisition lasted half a goddamn hundred years.
No, dude.
Millennium.
No, almost 500. Yeah, almost like half a millennium. That shit is... That is disgusting. And, yeah, okay, so, but that makes me think of all kinds of other crazy shit that has nothing to do with Edgar Allan Poe. Honestly, I'm reminded of the old, when Vincent Price, did the collection of short stories by Poe, and The Pit and the Pendulum was one of them that he acted out. And at the time when I saw that as a kid, I had no idea that was Spanish Inquisition shit. That shit was just creepy. And I think
I didn't know that it was until I read this. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just colorful and creepy, man. I dig it.
There was a critic back when this was published in 1845 by the name of William Butler Yeats, who
Why do I know that name?
I swear to God, I think I know
Yeats.
it too. But and like not just Yeats, but William Butler Yeats. But
Yeah.
he generally did not like Edgar Allan Poe, usually calling him vulgar. But he said of The Pit and the Pendulum that it doesn't seem to me to have permanent literary value of any kind. Analyze The Pit and the Pendulum and you'll find an appeal to the nerves by tawdry physical affrightments. So in other words, only jackasses that get off on the basis of the animal instinct kind of would find any use for this as a literary hold, you know? It's
So me, basically, because I just said colorful and creepy,
exactly,
and that's why I dig it.
that's
okay,
exactly why
okay.
I found it and had
Fuck
to read
that guy.
Yes. Yes.
Appreciate that.
You're welcome, bud. I mean, I wanted to give some validity to your wrong statement.
Yeah.
No, I believe me, dude. I feel the exact same way. I fucking love it, and that's why I love horror in general, is because of that sentiment exactly.
So we're not creatures of substance, though. We're just violent animals. That's basically what that guy's saying.
we can be both. You know, we can be both. We can both want
We
to.
can?
We can both want to fuck and fuck up. You know what I mean?
I was always under the assumption that when they told you can be anything you want when you grow up, I thought you had to, like, choose one. You know we could be both.
Well, I mean, no. I mean,
The
technically.
fuck? Have I been doing this wrong for 37 years?
Well, no. I mean, we all came
Well,
to
yeah,
an agreement
because-
that you can only choose one. The rest of us can be whatever the fuck we want, whenever we want. But you, yeah.
You see, because I can be an asshole and a smartass at the same time. So you see.
Mm-hmm.
No, that's double ass, Rob. That's a lot of ass.
Well,
That's why I'm always hauling it.
I was about to say,
Yeah.
well, fucking maybe some of it fell out of your fucking truck, Chris, because you're always hauling it everywhere. Ugh.
Shake that thing.
Ah. Watch yourself. The cask of Amontillado.
Now, this is one of my
What?
favorite stories right here.
This one,
Is
I
that
had,
is that the batter dipped deep fried sandwich that
Yeah.
I love so much?
yeah, which is it's crazy that how is this like the fact that this is Robert's favorite story, it's kind of tells you a lot
That
about
makes
Robert.
Rob a fatty.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
makes him whatever
Favorite story.
whatever
I
the
love a
batter.
good revenge story.
A batter dipped deep fried club sandwich with Swiss instead and fucking no
Oh, man.
bacon.
Oh, that sounds
that's,
good.
Oh, my
That's
nipples
my
are
only
so
gripe
hard.
about that story is that it has no bacon.
Nipples are so hard.
You're making me hungry again. God damn.
You're making me hungry and sexy. Okay, so I had never heard of this. I had heard of this, the name of this story before, but I had never heard it. I'd never read it until the other day when I was doing my research. Which actually, I meant to gloat about that earlier. Hey guys, I did some motherfucking actual research for this goddamn podcast.
I don't believe it until I see your
What?
handwriting.
I have bookmark upon bookmark upon bookmark for this. Oh,
I still got windows open about Betty Cash and Vicky Landrum. I think maybe I should kind of post those on Facebook.
hey man, post away. This is too much shit for me to post. I will, however, maybe post some of the creepy art from the early late 1800s for some of Poe's work, which is kind of cool.
Hell yeah.
So
Yeah, you guys got to start teasing some episodes. I'm serious.
why? I tease episodes
Because-
like fucking mad, man. I tease episodes the
Be a
day before
tease,
they
come
come
on.
out.
I rub them in
Be a
clockwise.
tease.
As
in a
long
clockwise
as,
direction.
Robert, you don't tease the specifics of an episode where Chris and I can see them before we record.
Stop. Hey,
That's
I didn't
true.
know you had a magnifying glass, and I still don't want to know what you use it for, okay?
It's called zooming in on your phone. Oh, god damn it. So, the cask of Amontillado, which is a short story by Edgar Allan Poe. Surprised, fellas?
Yeah, I've never read this one either.
Yeah, same. And yet this is Robert's favorite, which it is really good though.
To be fair to me, I don't read a lot. Period.
Yeah.
Actually, maybe if you count street signs, I read a lot.
Yeah, I don't think we're gonna count those.
and maybe like subtitles.
Okay, yeah, that you can have. That you can have all day. I'm down with that.
I gotta say, I've read this story several times, but if you want to truly get a good understanding of it, Thug Notes did this story.
Who did?
Thug notes.
Thug Notes.
Oh, the one where the
Thug,
the thuggish
like
dude
Tupac?
goes through.
Yeah, with Professor
yeah.
Sparky Sweets or something like that. Yes.
I've never listened to it, but I've seen it on the podcast player and been like, that sounds neat, and then I just don't listen to it, just like I don't listen to anything else. So in this story, Chris, since it's just you and
we're
I who
awesome.
are the dum-dums in the room here, the story's narrator, Montresor, tells an unspecified person who knows him very well of the day he took his revenge on Fortunato, which is Italian for the fortunate one, who is a fellow nobleman. Being angry
Already,
over
I like that we actually have a name for this narrator. Like we know who he is.
Oh, So far.
It's not just some weird, creepy guy like breathing hard
He's a
on the
fellow
back of our
hater.
necks.
Oh, we get into more like that. Don't worry. You'll be happy.
Cool. Alright.
Angry over numerous
Surprise sex.
injuries and some unspecified insult, Montresor plots to murder his quote-unquote friend during carnival, while the man is drunk, dizzy, and wearing a jester's motley. Montresor lures Fortunato into a private wine tasting excursion by telling him he's obtained a pipe, which is it's about 130 gallons, which is also about 492 liters, of what he believes to be a rare vintage Amontillado. Why? I've said it right so many fucking times and now I fucked it up. Amontillado. He proposes...
It's a fancy wine.
He proposes obtaining confirmation of the pipe's contents by inviting a fellow wine aficionado, Lucchesi, for private tasting. Montresor knows Fortunato will not be able to resist demonstrating his discerning palate for wine and will insist that he taste the Amontillado rather than Lucchesi, who, as he claims, cannot tell Amontillado from sherry, not cherry. Fortunato goes with Montresor to the wine cellars of the latter's palazzo, where they wander in the catacombs. Montresor offers wine, first Medoc and then de Grave, to Fortunato in order to keep him inebriated. Montresor warns Fortunato, who has a bad cough, of the dampness and suggests they go back. But Fortunato insists on continuing, claiming he shall not die of a cough during their walk. Montresor mentions his family coat of arms, which is a golden foot in a blue background crushing a snake whose fangs are embedded in the foot's heel, with the motto, Nemo me impure lacet. No one attacks me with impunity. At one point, Fortunato makes an elaborate, grotesque gesture with an upraised wine bottle. When Montresor appears not to recognize the gesture, Fortunato asks, "Are you not of the Masons?" Montresor says he is, and when Fortunato, disbelieving, requests a sign, Montresor displays a trowel he had been hiding. Haha, get it? He's got a trowel, he's a Mason. When they come to a niche, Montresor tells his victim that the Amontillados would in. Fortunato enters drunk and unsuspecting, and therefore does not resist, as Montresor quickly chains him to the wall. Montresor then declares that since Fortunato won't go back, Montresor must positively leave him here. Montresor reveals brick and mortar, previously hidden among the bones nearby, and proceeds to wall up the niche using his trowel, entombing his friend alive. At first, Fortunato, who sobers up faster than Montresor anticipated, shakes the chains trying to escape. Fortunato then screams for help, but Montresor mocks his cries, knowing nobody can hear him. Fortunato laughs weakly and tries to pretend that he is the subject of a joke and that people will be waiting for him, including Lady Fortunato. As Montresor finishes the topmost row of stones, Fortunato wails, "For the love of God, Montresor," to which Montresor replies, "Yes, for the love of God." He listens for a reply, but hears only the jester's bells. Before placing the last stone, he drops a burning torch through the gap. He claims that he feels sick at heart, but dismisses this reaction as an effect on the dampness of the catacombs. In the last few sentences, Montresor reveals that 50 years later, Fortunato's body still hangs from its chains in the niche where he left it. The murderer concludes, "In peace, resquiat," which means, "May he rest in peace." What do you think, Chris?
Well then.
It is. It's a story about entombing a person alive. And what I love the most about this story in particular is that he does this to a quote-unquote friend, first of all. Second of all, he does it for what seems to be perceived slights. That we don't have confirmation of these slights that happened and how slightful they were and how slighty they had been around other people's boyfriends, you know?
Yeah, this is an interesting one. Burying somebody alive or entombing them, or that's fucked up.
Oh, fuck yeah.
Way more fucked up than just killing them.
Well, but you know what else is crazy about it, though, is that, Fortunato is alive, and he is chained up to this wall, and he's watching his entombment live.
Right.
Like, he wasn't knocked out and thrown in there and then walled in to wake up under the horror that he had been, now he's stuck for life. It's that he's got to sit there and watch who he thought was his friend wall him up while he mocks his cries for help.
So twisted.
It's really a story about greed. Because he gives him several opportunities to turn around. He's like, it's kind of damp down here and you've already got that cough. You sure you want to go forward? Fortunato says yes. Then he gets a little further and he goes, you know what my crest is, right?
The foot stepping on the snake.
Fortunato continues into it. So he gives him every opportunity to turn back. Like, are you sure you want to keep going?
But see,
and the guy's lust for this wine just is so great that he has to go. But yet,
that's the thing, is
when
he
he
was
gets
luring
there,
him in the first place.
Yeah, but
So
when you're chasing after something so much that you can't focus on anything else, all you see is that thing that you want. In the end, it just bricks you up, and now you're tied to it.
Yeah,
It's like the people chasing after the new car, the big house.
Right.
Pretty soon, you're shackled.
I do really like that explanation of it. I kind of came away with it with you kind of see Montresor, I think, as some kind of he wants.
He's the voice of reason when you look at it, because he keeps telling the guy, "Are you sure you
But
want to
he's
keep
not.
going?"
He's not,
Are
because
you sure?
because it was completely. He hid the brick and mortar in the catacombs amongst the bones of his long dead relatives to wall in this person against perceived slights that were so egregious to him that I don't think he would have turned around and left if he said, "Oh yeah, you're right, cough, 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 let's go." I think he did, I believe, want to be that dickhead who was like, "Oh, I know exactly what he's gonna say to this, because fuck man, he wants that wine, so I'll do this." But I think he was more humoring himself than anything in those situations, because he would not have let him go. He says. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. I was thinking either humoring himself in the way that you were saying, or perhaps even like almost like giving himself little outs, like trying to talk himself out of it the whole time by giving the other guy outs, but in a way it would be giving himself outs if the guy actually took it. But
Right,
since he never took it, well, then he set all this up, so he might as well go through with it. Fuck it.
Absolutely, and that
your grave, you got to lie in it.
that makes a lot of fucking sense too. Actually, is him maybe not having the cojones to go through with this baseless murder of who is or was a friend, saying that well, okay, well maybe we can go back, and then asking him, and then when he says no, he's like, oh, well, okay, shit. Okay, well, okay, let's try this then. But
Right, and why else would you do something like that where you don't actually have to physically harm someone? I mean, he did ignore his cries, I guess, which is...
he didn't
like,
ignore them.
He
mocked them. He mocked his cries.
Okay, so yeah, you got to be pretty twisted to be doing this type of shit. It really doesn't matter if you fucking physically hurt the guy or not, in your revenge before you bar him up. Like, that's...
Yeah,
I don't know, but maybe I really like Rob's explanation for it, because he saw something within the words. I personally take things perhaps too literally most
Right.
of the time. So, like, I mean, sometimes if it's not coming from me personally, I won't see the analogy,
Right,
or
right,
I
right.
won't catch the
Well,
symbolism.
let me leave off the cask of Amontillado with this one a very short sentence, which is why I think you're both right and you're both wrong, with your explanations of it. But these are more feelings than explanations, of course, and no one's right or wrong. But Montresor says to Fortunato, "You are rich, respected, admired, beloved. You are happy, as once I was." So
So he's just a fucking hater.
exactly. He came from a super respected, wealthy family who is now on the decline, and Fortunato comes from a now upcoming super rich and wealthy and respected family. And I think that Fortunato had no slights, no thousand fucking wrongs
Right.
against Montresor. I think it is purely a jealousy thing, and he's got to take him out because he is who I used to be, and
Right.
how can I be that again with him still here? Okay, we have
Yeah,
we
yeah,
have two
yeah.
more, and this one is probably going to be the longest out of them all. So let's get to the fall of the House of Usher, which I mean, Usher looks good for fucking over 200 years old. I'm just gonna throw that out there now. He can still dance like crazy, and
Yeah.
he can rock a pair of sunglasses like fucking nobody's business.
Dude, for 200 years old, his ankles are doing wonderfully.
Fucking better than mine, and I'm only 35. So,
Mm-hmm.
so the plot of the fall of the House of Usher, which this is probably my absolute favorite Poe short story. It begins with the unnamed narrator back again, fucking with a vengeance,
This fucking guy.
arriving at the house of his friend Roderick Usher, having received a letter from him in a distant part of the country complaining of an illness and asking for his help. As he arrives, the narrator notes a thin crack extending from the roof down the front of the building and into the adjacent lake. Although Poe wrote this story before the invention of modern psychological science, Roderick's condition can be described according to its terminology. It includes a form of sensory overload known as hyperresnia, which is a hypersensitivity to textures, light, sounds, smells, and tastes. Hypochondria, which is an excessive preoccupation or worry about having a serious illness. And acute anxiety, which I think we all know what anxiety is. And
Pretty sure.
when it's adorable, it's fucking serious. It's revealed that Roderick's twin sister Madeline is also ill and falls into cataleptic, death-like trances. Roderick and Madeline are the only remaining members of the House of Usher. The narrator's impressed with Roderick's paintings and attempts to cheer him by reading with him and listening to his improvised musical compositions on guitar. Roderick sings The Haunted Palace, then tells the narrator that he believes the house he lives in to be alive, and that this sentience arises from the arrangement of the masonry and the vegetation surrounding it. Further, Roderick believes that his fate's connected to the family mansion. Roderick later informs the narrator that his sister has died and insists that she be entombed for 2 weeks in the family tomb located in the house before being permanently buried. The narrator helps Roderick put the body in the tomb, and he notes that Madeline has rosy cheeks, as some do after death. They inter her, but over the next week, both Roderick and the narrator find themselves becoming increasingly agitated for no apparent reason. A storm begins. Roderick comes to the narrator's bedroom, which is situated directly above the vault, and throws open his window to the storm. He notices that the tarn surrounding the house seemed to glow in the dark, as it glowed in Roderick Usher's paintings, although there is no lighting. The narrator attempts to calm Roderick by reading aloud The Mad Tryst, which is a novel involving a knight named Elthrid, who breaks into a hermit's dwelling in an attempt to escape an approaching storm, only to find a palace of gold guarded by a dragon. He also finds hanging on the wall a shield of shining brass on which is written a legend. He who entereth herein a conqueror hath been, who slayeth the dragon the shield shall he win. With a stroke of his mace, Elthrid kills the dragon, who dies with a piercing shriek, and proceeds to take the shield, which falls to the floor with an unnerving clatter. As the narrator reads of the knight's forcible entry into the dwelling, cracking and ripping sounds are heard somewhere into the house. When the dragon is described as shrieking as it dies, a shriek is heard again within the house. As he relates the shield from falling off the wall, a reverberation, metallic and hollow, can be heard. Roderick becomes increasingly hysterical and eventually exclaims that these sounds are being made by his sister, who was in fact alive when she was entombed. Additionally, Roderick somehow knew that she was alive. The bedroom door is then blown open to reveal Madeline standing there. She falls on her brother, and both land on the floor as corpses. The narrator then flees the house, and as he does so, notices a flash of moonlight behind him, which causes him to turn back, in time to see the moon shining through the suddenly widened crack. As he watches, the house of Usher splits into two, and the fragments sink into the tarn. So, this story is all kinds of fucked up, man. So, his childhood friend, and I mean, in the full story. Oh, and that Poe thing on Netflix that I was telling y'all about is called Extraordinary Tales. Check it out; it is fucking amazing. And this is one of them on there, but it's so fucking worth it. So the narrator spent time here as a child. You know, this is one of his best friends for life, his BFFs, if you will, and he's sick. Roderick's sick, and he wants Mr. Narrator to come, you know, hang out, make his time a little better, you know, maybe help him out with some things. Narrator gets there, and now there's just crazy seeping out from under the fucking floorboards. It's dripping from the goddamn ceiling. It's you know, spraying out from that weird faucet that doesn't just, it maybe something's gunked up inside it, and it's like you try to fucking undunk it.
You mean the one that washes your balls?
Yes, that one. It's you know, it's the mini turlet. That's what I call them, is the mini turlets.
I see.
But you know,
Mini
he
turlet.
gets there in all and he's prepared to help. You know, he's like, yeah, I'm gonna fucking help my buddy out, and everything's gonna be okay for him because I'm here to be a good buddy. And he gets there, and there's just crazy. Dude's probably not even really sick. Dude's probably not even you know, anything really. And he proceeds to then be told, hey, yeah, you know my sister who's kind of just like me or whatever, oh yeah, she's dead. Can you help me bury her maybe, and then we can you know, get back to the crazy, you know, but let's bury her inside for like let's say 2 weeks, and no, we're gonna bury her right under the room that I put you in when you got here, and then, you know, yeah, we'll have some fun. And then they do that, and then it's raining, and then he's like, oh god, and then he starts reading him a fucking book. That's my favorite part about this, is that there is a story inside a story, that like the story of the knight going into the hermit's lair and finding a palace of gold and all this shit is a fully fleshed out tale of its own inside another tale. And it's literally only put there to be a comfort to the crazy person, and shit just starts happening that relates the fucking fully fleshed out tale within the tale to the crazy person that's the focus of the original tale. I think that's nuts, and I love it.
But that was also standard practice.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Chris.
But I don't think it was often so well done. You know.
Well, no, the standard practice of leaving her, not burying her for 2 weeks. Actually, the forerunner to funeral homes were death houses, where they would actually, they would actually lay people out because they didn't know: are you sleeping? Are you dead? Or are you not?
Right.
And there's countless tales of people being buried alive.
Yeah, that's
so
why
they would literally leave dead bodies laying out on a table for a week or two just to make sure.
And that's why they would,
crazy.
bury people with the bells that were, tied to their toes and shit like that, and blah blah blah. But you know what I say? I say screw all that and let's just chop off the heads. You come into my funeral home, your head's coming off immediately, and then there are no questions. I'm getting paid, bitches.
There you go. That makes sense. That makes sense. I mean, you could just for an open casket wake or whatever, you just super glue it back into place.
I was about to say, you glue it, you staple it, you what one of my favorite things always to do was
little hubba bubba.
No, man, is you stick a bunch of toothpicks into the bottom part, and then you just stick the top part back onto the toothpicks. Man, that shit ain't going nowhere.
Yeah, that's how we would do it in the culinary world. That's for sure. The thing I found odd though is that yet again with the whole like setting it up but covering your tracks but kind of not at the same time, in that he told him the house was alive
right
in the beginning, so that almost to me that's kind of like a setup for, oh, I know the bitch ain't dead. Right. So it's like, so when the screaming and the fucking the noises are happening, and he could have just played it off like, nah, I told you the house is alive, man. It doesn't like this story. And I took a mean shit earlier and it is not happy with me still.
The house smells.
That's just the ice maker kicking on in the fridge. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, I put fucking potato peels in the goddamn garbage disposal, and it's fucked up. And yeah, man. But no, he fucks himself over by telling him that he knew she wasn't dead.
Yeah,
and then,
but I love how he just somehow knew. But I think he somehow knew because he just knew that she would go into these comas, and he was like, I'm crazy. Let's bury her.
What I wonder is how, like, okay, this is what I was trying not to bring up earlier, but I'm just gonna fucking hit it real quick, and then wham bam, thank you ma'am, without going in too far to it.
Hit it and quit.
You know how, yeah, you know how fucking pretty much, aside from all the unexplainable shit, let's just take all that shit out. Aside from all the unexplainable shit, the history of mankind, all the way up into the last like 300 years, has been nothing but fucking kill. Fucking kill, fucking kill, fucking kill, build some shit, fucking kill. But like the jump in fucking intelligence and that kind of, all the leaps that we've made in the last, just 100 years alone, like that shit blows my mind when we talk about shit like this, that this was barely 100 years ago, right? And they didn't even know that dead bodies get cold instead of fucking warm. Like, what?
Well, I mean, let's be fair here. This was over 150 years ago, and
whatever.
It, I mean, hey, man. I mean, I'm not gonna say. You know what? Shut up, Chris.
I'm gonna say aliens. That's what I'm gonna say.
Yeah.
How the fuck else? Aliens. How the fuck else?
Let me say this. These two paragraphs are great. The explicit psychological dimension of this tale has prompted many critics to analyze it as a description of the human psyche, comparing, for instance, the house to the unconscious and its central crack to a split personality. Mental disorder is also evoked through the themes of melancholy, possible incest, and vampirism. An incestuous relationship between Roderick and Madeline is never explicitly stated, but seems implied by the strange attachment between the two. I always thought that was true. Now, here's the best. I take your fucking crazy shit alien thing and raise you opium withdrawal. Opium, which Poe mentions several times in both his prose and poems, is mentioned twice in this tale. The gloomy sensation occasioned by the dreary landscape around the Usher mansion is compared by the narrator to the sickness caused by the withdrawal symptoms of an opiate addict. The narrator also describes Roderick Usher's appearance as that of an irreclaimable eater of opium.
Wowie zowies.
So his friend was into heroin basically, and was going through withdrawals, and he was having sex with his sister, who was also a heroin addict,
and an alien, I believe.
And just, well, that goes without saying. Boy, there goes Poe with that incest again, man. I'm telling you.
I don't know. Some CC with this poetry and fucking weird literary shit. Like, I sometimes, a lot of times, I feel like these people are stretching so fucking far that it's kind of like that theory that if you go looking for something, you're gonna find it, but only most of the time it's only because you kind of forced it.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, honestly, I didn't get any of that from it. I mean, the house and it, yeah, that shit was weird and all, but maybe that's just me taking everything too literally. Like,
well,
I didn't get I didn't get anything incestuous or opium out of it at all.
Well, we also didn't read the whole story. It was just a synopsis of it, a summary of it. So,
fair enough.
Reading the whole thing, you absolutely would have gotten the incestuous thing from it because dude loved his little cyst, like, for certain.
Was she 13?
It was also the only two of them living in the house.
It's never implicitly said, so let's go ahead and say yes, absolutely, 100% positively for sure she was 13.
Apparently that was the thing back in the day, so, I mean, how could he deny his...
Well, if you only lived to 40.
All the way up until Jerry Lewis. And then, wait, Jerry Lewis? He's the Great Balls of Fire guy,
No, not
right?
Jerry Lee Lewis.
Jerry Lee
Lewis.
Yeah.
Yes.
He married his
Great Balls of Fire.
Speaking of Great Balls of Fire, we will now conclude the show with the Telltale Heart.
I was just about to say, do you guys see this time?
Yeah, exactly. So, the summary. The Telltale Heart is a first-person narrative of an unnamed narrator who insists he is sane.
This fucking guy.
Yeah, shut up.
Gets into some shit.
He insists he's sane, but is suffering from a disease, which is just nervousness, which
we're going to call him Ernie.
Over-acuteness of the senses. Now,
Maybe it's nightmares from fucking burying 13-year-old girls alive.
There's ambiguity surrounding the identity of the narrator. So we can't really know the narrator's gender for sure, but most people assume it is a male, so say he. But the old man...
Are you assuming their gender?
The old man with whom the narrator lives has a clouded, pale blue vulture-like eye, which distresses the narrator so much that he plots to murder the old man, despite also insisting that he loves the old man. The narrator insists that his careful precision in committing the murder proves that he can't possibly be insane. For 7 nights, the narrator opens the door of the old man's room in order to shine a sliver of light onto the evil eye. So, the last two sentences.
See, that sounds like a woman to me.
The last 2 sentences. The narrator insists that his careful precision in committing the murder proves that he cannot possibly be insane. Followed by the sentence, for 7 nights, the narrator opens the door of the old man's room in order to shine a sliver of light onto the evil eye.
I think that might still hold up in court today, though. Like, if you take enough time to really plan something, I think they pretty much just go, yeah, he's crazy, but he knew exactly what the fuck he was
Oh,
doing.
fuck yeah. Exactly. So, however, the old man's
can't be
vulture
crazy.
eye...
I crept into his bedroom every night.
Yeah,
Me?
but he knew
Crazy?
exactly what he was doing.
I mean, come on, guys. All I was trying to do for fucking a week in a row was see if I could get a sliver of light into his fucking crazy evil vulture eye. Guys?
Yeah, I wonder
Does that make
if
me
like
crazy?
I wonder if the eye, like, threw some kind of like weird shadow puppet on the wall when it reflected just right, or
It said, "Eat at Joe's," and it blunk.
it blunk.
So the old man's vulture eye is
love that
always
word.
closed, making it impossible to quote-unquote do the work. On the 8th night, the old man awakens after the narrator's hand slips and makes a noise, interrupting the narrator's nightly ritual. But the narrator does not draw back and, after some time, decides to open his lantern. A single thin ray of light shines out and lands precisely on the evil eye, revealing that it's wide open. Hearing the old man's heart beating loudly and dangerously fast from terror, the narrator decides to strike, jumping out with a loud yell and smothering the old man in his own bed. The narrator then... Exactly. Ha-ha! The narrator then dismembers the body and conceals the pieces under the floorboards and ensures the concealment of all signs of the crime. Even so, the old man's scream during the night causes a neighbor to report to the police, who the narrator invites in to look around. He claims that the screams heard were his own in a nightmare and that the man is absent out in the country. Confident that they'll not find any evidence of the murder, the narrator brings chairs for them and they sit in the old man's room on the very spot where the body is concealed and suspect nothing, as the narrator has a pleasant and easy manner about him. The narrator begins to feel uncomfortable and notices a ringing in his ears. As the ringing grows louder, the narrator comes to the conclusion that it's the heartbeat of the old man coming from under the floorboards. The sound increases steadily, though the officers seem to pay it no attention. Terrified by the violent beating of the heart and convinced that the officers are aware not only of the heartbeat but also of his guilt, the narrator breaks down and confesses, telling them to tear up the floor to reveal the remains of the old man's body. So, we're going to do something a little bit different here, since we are so late in the show. First, Robert, you are going to tell me not what you learned today, but what you learned about how to smother a man in his bed because of his evil eye.
Well, I learned that you have to wake him up first by shining the light in his face. You just can't creep up on him while he's sleeping and let him go quietly. You got to be like, ah! Wait, make sure he's up first before you kill him so he knows it's coming.
Absolutely, exactly. Otherwise, it won't work because the evil eye will call out and use its rape whistle and mace. Okay, Chris, your turn.
It's also...
Oh, wait, no, okay, go ahead, yes.
It's also, you have to live with yourself afterwards. You just can't. It's like the heart beating again. It's his little conscience inside of him saying, you killed that dude. He's sitting right there.
Or he was crazy, and that was an audio hallucination.
Nah, we totally proved he
But he wasn't
crazy.
crazy. He crept in there 7 nights in a row.
I know, and never a saner man have I heard explanation of his nightly routine, but I'm just saying that maybe. Okay, Chris.
Yes, sir.
Your turn.
Same question?
Yeah, same question.
Oh, okay. Well, I think this is one of my all-time favorite Poe stories. For our listeners out there, the floorboard thing, that's I don't know that ever works. I really don't. Like,
No, 'cause
if you
stuff
don't do
starts to stink,
something,
man.
exactly. Like, if you're gonna premeditate the shit, then think it through, man. Like, this whole sitting and not disappearing when the old man woke up, like, that right there. I mean, I get it. You want him to know it's coming. I get that. But
But I don't
His
think he did.
scream is what alerted the neighbor.
And I don't know if he, in all sincerity, wanted to murder the old man, because he says, you know, he loves him, and it's posited by many people that the old man was either like his landlord or possibly his father, or you know, older roommate, or maybe his Uncle John that likes to wrestle way too much. But you know, he has some kind of connection to the old man, first of all. Second of all, he says that he has no problem with the old man at all. Like, he flat out says that, I don't fucking like his fucking vulture eye. That's it. That's it.
That's why it sounds like a woman to me. I love you, but I'm going to kill you. And I'm going to make sure you're awake when I kill you, too. Not just going to get your ass in your sleep.
But the narrator accidentally wakes the old man and then's like, oh, I'm hearing the heart go crazy from fucking his terror that somebody's in his room while he's asleep. Now's the time. And then takes the opportunity. So I don't think she was like, oh, I need to wake him up to kill him. He and or she was simply trying to shine a sliver of light into his vulture eye. That's it.
It was the straw that broke the camel's back. That's why you always put your dishes in the dishwasher. Don't leave them on the sink. In the dishwasher, okay?
It was the straw that smothered the old man with the vulture eye. That works, right, guys?
Sure.
Okay. So, and this is what I've learned from The House and Fall and Telltale and this and that and these, thous, theys, and those. And holy shit, Chris is calling me. Hold on. We lost Chris. Hold on. Hold on, Chris. I'm coming. Hey, buddy.
What the hell, man?
Dude, I don't know. Dude, I don't know. But you literally did not miss anything. I was like, oh, who's calling me right now? I'm almost done with the show. I'll call him right back. And I looked, and it said, Chris Buddy Podcast Buddy. Like, holy shit. Okay. Well, because I was saying what I learned, which from all of his short stories and all of his poetry and all of his essays and all of his real life, thingamabobberolls, and he was a complicated man. I think he knew what he wanted in life, but I don't think he knew exactly the steps to take to get it. And when he thought he had that part figured out, he quickly found that I don't think he thought he was prepared for that kind of work, and then just kind of farted around. I think he could have been so much more than he was, especially if he hadn't been, an alcoholic hydrocephalic that just drunk himself.
Waterhead, baby.
Yeah, if he hadn't died at 40, I mean, we can say this literally about every single artist that's ever died early. But I think that...
Rest in peace, Tupac and Biggie.
Yeah, I mean, except that both of them are still alive, of course, you big stupid Robert.
Living with Elvis?
No, man, why would they live with Elvis? Elvis is an old, gross, fat white guy.
It's true. There is still some tension.
But, rest in peace, everybody. Hey, guys, I have one more thing to relegate you with, to regale you with, even, is, you guys just took part in, and you listening have just heard another riveting episode of See No, Hear No, Speak No.
Well, color me regaled. Yeah, you know what? The UFOs, I mean, I kind of worked them in. Conspiracies, I think we had a little bit of that. And I will say, We definitely had some murders. But I will say that I think that last one is bullshit. You can't fucking tell me. Here's the thing. You can't fucking tell me that you didn't want to kill the guy, or you had no plans to kill the fucking guy, if you being busted being a fucking creeper is what you saw as your opportunity, quote unquote, opportunity to pounce. Now, what else did you think was going to happen when you pounced if you considered that an opportunity? Listen, I love me some fucking ninjas, and I wind up accidentally sneaking up on people all the fucking time, and I can tell you I have never once has it ever crossed my head, other than in a joke, like, hey, I could have just killed you right now, as that being an opportunity.
Well, you
Like,
know,
I'm just saying, there's a certain mind state I call bullshit.
Paranoid schizophrenia does crazy things to people. So,
Yeah, no pun intended.
and murder. And Robert.
And murders. Robert.
That's right.
Good night, everybody.
I hope you ladies
It's time
enjoyed
for
the
countdown.
sausage fest. Good night.
It's time for the countdown. Time for the countdown. Here comes the countdown. 3, 2, 1. Boom.
Beep. Later, kids.
Bye.
I want to know, and all I want
Ho diddy, ho diddy.